Hey guys, Danny here. So today I just wanted to quickly talk about some alternatives to Photoshop when it comes to designing designs for digital interfaces, whether that's a website, mobile app, Apple Watch interface. Photoshop historically has been kind of the place to go to do stuff like that, but over the last like 5 to 10 probably years, there's been lots of really good options coming out that are more tailored towards a digital design environment. So today we're going to talk about Adobe XD, but there's lots of alternatives to this. I don't want you to think that this is the one and only. This is what we're going to use mainly because you have access to the Adobe Creative Cloud. Some alternatives that are really great. Figma is probably the most popular application when it comes to designing user interface designs, mainly because it's free. There's a free option for it. You can upgrade to get some more features. It's web-based, so you just go to a website, log in, and start using the platform. So there's a lot of benefits to Figma. I actually just found out that Adobe has purchased Figma for about $20 billion. So pretty soon, Figma is going to be a part of the Adobe family. I'm not sure what that means exactly, but I guess time will tell. Another option is SketchUp, which again is very similar to Figma, similar interface, similar way of doing things. You can create prototypes of your design, so you can have the user like click through different steps to get a sense of what the actual final project's going to look like. You can share with collaborators. Again, you could do that in Figma and XD, so it's very similar. And then there's also InVision. So InVision historically used to be mainly for prototyping. So now that Sketch and Figma and Adobe XD allow you to prototype directly in their own platforms and share in an online environment. InVision has kind of pivoted a little bit, but you could still do prototyping with InVision. They also have a competitor to Sketch and Figma and Adobe XD, which allows you to design in their platform as well. So those are 4 very similar tools. They're all great in different ways. Some people like one over the other for different reasons. There's also lots of like plugins and libraries that are associated with these platforms. So maybe XD or Figma has more plugins and libraries than Sketch and InVision. So those are some things that you want to consider when it comes to picking the platform that you're going to use to design and prototype your websites and apps and any digital projects you're working on. But for today, we're going to mainly focus on Adobe XD. Everything I'm going to cover today is very similar to what you would find in the other platforms too, so it's not a huge leap to go from XD to Figma to Sketch to InVision. So yeah, hopefully this will be helpful, and feel free to reach out if you have any questions. So let's go ahead and open Adobe XD. So again, you should have access to this if you have access to the Adobe Creative Cloud. You might need to download this if you don't already have it on your machine. But again, you should have access if you have access to Photoshop and Illustrator and Design. You should have access to XD as well. So on the main page, we have a couple of options. We can select the iPhone size, a web environment for like a laptop or desktop. You can do Instagram stories, or you can customize your own artboard. So let's go ahead and start with a web app. So when you click on that, it's going to open up this window that gives you the artboard here. That's 1920 by 1080 pixels. On the top, we have our menu. So there's the design option, prototype, and share on the top left, and then our home button. On the left side is some tools that we could use to create shapes and objects and type, create a new artboard. We can zoom in, zoom out. There is, on the bottom left, there's buttons for a library, layers, and then also plugins. So let's just kind of play around with this a little bit. So why don't we just kind of draw like a little header at the top with a rectangle. So this is very similar to Illustrator and InDesign, so this shouldn't be too hard for you guys to figure out. You can click on different assets, and on the right hand side there's a couple options for positioning and transforming, the size, the location. You could do responsive resizing, where it automatically resizes if you're changing the width of the layout. There's colors. If you want to change the fill to a different color, you can do that. You can change the border. So again, very similar to the other Adobe applications out there. Let's say we wanted to add like an image instead of just having a red box here for like the header. So we could do that by going to our library. So if you go back from your assets, you can go to My Library, and you can add objects here. You can browse. So this is My Library. You can get stuff through the Adobe stock photo and marketplace if you wanted to, or you can upload. Let's go to My Library, and you could create new groups if you wanted to, so you can create a folder for your project that you're working on or the clients that you're working for, and then kind of organize it that way. I'm just going to add an item, upload file, and I have a couple images here, so I'm just going to choose, I'm going to select all of them and then add all those images in there. And then they'll be loaded to the cloud, so everything's kind of cloud-based, so you have access to it pretty much anywhere as long as you log into your account. So now that those are all uploaded there, so I have access to all those images. And let's see, let's do just one of these, pull it into that box, and it should place it inside the box. You could also kind of place it outside if you wanted to, just have the whole image there as well, but I'm just going to put it in the box, and it's going to mask it and crop it for us appropriately. Then we could expand it if we wanted to. Going to do the full top part, so this is going to be a nice beautiful header. And then we can add some text if we wanted to. This is a website. And then you select it, and you can make it center aligned, make it bigger. Let's do 100 pixels. Let's make it bold. All caps. And let's change the fill to be white. And then we have our arrow tool here. If we want to move things around, we can select that. And then everything kind of like auto locks to a certain point. So this is the center point. You kind of click and drag objects to where you want it to be, and it'll kind of lock into that area, which is nice. Let's do some navigation over here too. Just gonna do home. Let's change the size again. Make it not bold, and 24. Let's see how that is. Okay, and then let's make it, let's do black. Let's make it bold too. I like bold. So we have some navigation up here. And then let's do it flush left. And I copy this, and then it's nice because it tells you how many pixels you're going away from the previous one. Let's do 30 pixels. Let's do blog. And how about contact? So another 30 pixels. And it locks into place, which is awesome. Contact us. Okay. So we have a little bit of a website going on here. If we wanted to, we could click on the canvas essentially. We could change the name if we wanted to. So let's just say home. Oops. Home page. We can also click on it and expand. So if we wanted this to be bigger, so we have more space to work with, we can do that too. And then I'm going to move this over a little bit. It's a little tight to the edge. And then also you can see that there's like this little blue thing here. That just means that everything above that is going to be above the fold, essentially. So when the website loads, that's going to be, everything above that's going to be visible. Everything below that you're going to have to scroll to. Okay, so let's just say we're making an array of objects here. So let's make a box here. Let's put in an image. That's pretty good. Get it in the right position. Let's add some text here too. So let's give this a title. This is a flower title. Okay. Let's give this a description. Actually, let's do that as a text box, not just a line of text. So for a text box, you have to click and drag. Let's try that again. Click and drag. Flower title. Let's do that again for the description. Click and drag. Description. Okay. All right. Let's make that regular. And another good thing is with the plugins. So there's lots of different plugins that you can have. You can have like map plugins and icons. There's one here that's called Lorem Ipsum, and I could just place in dummy copy for now. So you have some options, then insert text. So it's just going to insert some dummy copy for us to use, which is pretty cool. Just kind of format this a little bit. Let's center. Let's do a little off center. Okay. Okay. So now that we have one of these components here, let's select it all, and then there's this really cool thing called repeat grid here on the top right. So if you click on that, you can basically duplicate any asset, any object into a grid format real quickly and easily. So if we click on that, it's going to give us the option to click and drag and repeat these elements. So now we have a grid of elements with different spacing. We can also increase the spacing in between. So if we want to make this a little bit more, let's do 60, like even numbers. You can also do this as well. Make it a little bit wider. 40 looks good. Cool. Yeah, I think that looks pretty good. We got a website going on here. We could also ungroup this if we wanted to make modifications. If I wanted to add another image from my library. So let's just pull any image here. It's going to update all of them in that row. So let me undo that and we can ungroup it. And then when I pull in a new image here, it's going to update just that one element. And we could also change the text here. So this could be sunset title. This could be moon title, etc. But if we wanted to, if we needed to redo this and add more, we could also do that too and just hit regroup again and we'll add more. So another thing that you could do is play around with prototyping. So if we wanted to prototype this by like testing it out and having hover states, like for the navigation, we could do that. So let's select our home and we could add a component here. And this is the default state. We can add a hover state and let's just change the color to like red or something. So that's the hover state. Let's do the same thing with blog. Add it as a component. Create a hover state. And contact us. Add it as a component. Create a hover state. Okay. So now let's test that out. So if we go to prototype, actually we don't need to do that yet, but we can just go to the upper right hand side. We could preview this. That didn't work. Okay. Let's see. Did I do that incorrectly? Let's delete that. Try again. Ah, sorry, I just selected new state. So let me undo that real quick. Okay. So let me delete that and select hover state. There we go. Okay, red. And hover state, red, and hover state, red. Okay, now let's test it out and play it. God damn it. There we go. Okay, so in prototype, you have to go back to default state, select it, and go back to default state, and then we play it, and then the hover state seems to work. There we go. So you can make the components and the hover states in design, but in prototype you have to select them, select the default state first, and then when you play it, it'll go to the hover state. So you could do other things too. Let me get an icon real quick. So in my plugins, I have icons plugin. Let's just look for an arrow, a down arrow. That one works. Oops, let's go back to design, sorry. Get a little bit bigger. Put it in the center. Let's make it white. Okay. Well, let's go to prototype as well. I'm going to select that. And in prototype, you can say, okay, I want to go down to this. So I want to scroll that on tap. I want to scroll to this section. And you can change the easing, you can change the duration, how fast it's scrolling. And once we do that, we can hit play, click on it, and it'll scroll to that section. Scroll up, and we can have hover states. This is a nice way to prototype something if you're presenting it to a client. Okay, So I have some other examples. So let me open that up real quick and I'll just show you what they look like. So this is very similar to what we just did. We have a navigation at the top. We have a big, beautiful image here, an arrow that scrolls down to this section. But I also have two more layouts, two more canvases for a iPhone as well. So this one has it's called a hamburger menu here, which I also got from the Icons plugin. And this is what it should look like when you click on the hamburger menu. So I have the click state and the default state. So if we go here and go to prototype, you can see that I connected that hamburger to this design. And when you click on that, then this should show up. When you click on it again, it'll toggle back and forth. So let's try that. Cool. So again, we are living in a mobile-first world these days, so it's always important to think about what your design is going to look like on a phone. So I would suggest you can either start with a desktop or start with mobile first. It's up to you. For the purposes of this class, I'm not requiring you to do both, but I would suggest that you do a mobile design and a desktop design. Let's see. So yeah, once you have that, you can, let's go back to design, and you can mark for export different elements, and then go to export, and you can export the selected, you can export batched, or you can export all artboards. You just export the selected, which is that arrow, and you can choose how you want it to output. You can change the name. And then there you go. So now once you have your design complete and you're ready to start building your website in HTML and CSS, you're going to have to export all those elements, image elements that you're going to be using for your website. So that's just an easy way to do it. You can batch it if you wanted to. You can export all if you wanted to, but that's an easy way to do it. Okay. So that is pretty much it. You kind of get a high level idea of what you can do with XD. Like I said, this is very similar to Figma, very similar to Sketch, and very similar to InVision's new platform. So if you wanted to go to any one of those, or if you're comfortable with any of those over XD, then feel free to use those too. Again, I think it just comes to personal preference, what you are comfortable with, what you've used in the past. And then also the plugins are really helpful. So each platform has different plugin libraries, so that's another thing to think of. I think XD and Figma probably have the most options when it comes to the plugins. It just makes your life a lot easier when it comes to taking like icons and graphics that are pretty standard when it comes to designing a website or an app for a phone, and then just using those rather than starting from scratch. Let's see. Oh, if you wanted to make a new artboard, then you can click on this guy. You can select the different type. So if we wanted to do like a phone, then we just select the phone, and that just pops open a new artboard. We can copy and paste different elements over. Like so. And kind of make some modifications here. and then you can do a version for a mobile phone as well. So that's how you create new artboards. So I think that's pretty much the basics. I think that should be helpful for you guys if you wanted to go with XD versus Photoshop. I would recommend it. I think this is the future. Photoshop is kind of the past. So I would suggest at least going with XD. Figma is definitely the industry favorite right now. But again, since Adobe just bought Figma, the future of Figma is a big question mark. I don't know if it's going to be kind of wrapped up into XD or if they're just going to leave it as is and just keep it under the Adobe brand. So that's a big question mark. But I think it's fine to use either or any of those for the purposes of this class. So again, feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. Hopefully this was helpful, and I again recommend going down the XD, Figma, Sketch, or InVision path with a more of an emphasis on XD and Figma being probably the best options for you guys. All right, thank you, and I'll see you guys next time.